And it looks like we are live. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in. Let's give us a second here. Let this stream breathe for a few minutes and kind of settle everything out. We've got our Facebook groups to add in here as well to join everybody in here at our Mile High Huddle community. And mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, overworked and underpaid. He is the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, man, I know how this stuff goes. Obviously, we've been working together now. This is our third combine together. And I know just the grind that you have to go through, watching everything as much as you possibly can, re-recording notes and everything. How you holding up, buddy?
I'm doing good. Been a rough week getting everything ready for the combine and everything all gathered up, trying to figure out, getting my times figured out of what I was expecting to run, so I can have that to compare to with what we're seeing on tape compared to what they're putting on at the combine. So it's been a rough week, but last night I got a good night's sleep. I got well rested after some rough nights, but it's been fun watching the combine, and it's really cool because they're having it where you have the players only combine. So yesterday it was a combination of Calais Campbell, Dwight Freeney, Matthew Judon. You had Devin White. They were all guys that were there, and they're talking about the drills and talking about different things. Today was Kenny Moore. You had Sauce Gardner on there and Jordan Poyer. And hearing them talk about different things about why these drills matter and is just such a great benefit for anybody, whether it's what you do for a living, like I do, like I cover this for a living, or if you just want to watch it casually, as to help you like really pinpoint down what it is you're looking for, what you want to see. So it's been great, and it's been great to help me learn and try to improve myself in doing this.
I'm really intrigued by that. Michael Roguillo jumping in here really fast, throwing some stars around. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate you, buddy. Saying good evening, Lance and Erick on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Always. Absolutely go Broncos. And thank you, Michael, for your continued support, buddy. We really appreciate you. So I'm curious if I can go back and try to find these players only combine stuff, because I'm intrigued. I don't have cable, so I got to try to find a way to figure out a way to watch everything. So going back and trying to find that's going to be really fun. But it sounds to me like the way that these players are talking about these drills is in a way that a lot of people don't understand. Because the casual fan that goes and watches the combine, they don't understand why these teams are using these drills to check these players and their movement skills and stuff like that. Like everybody knows what the 40 time is, the 3-cone vertical, like they all know that stuff. So last night, you and I were kind of talking about Jack Campbell and the linebacker from Iowa and some of the movement drills that he was doing. How do you utilize those in a way that you can understand everything and putting these players in a vacuum to see how they move?
Well, in the case of Jack Campbell, as we talked about, and linebackers in general, everybody wants to focus on the hips and the footwork, and it's more to that. And it's the same thing with defensive backs, really. With defensive backs, you want to see their arms pumping, but you don't want to see them get out of their frame, really. And with linebackers, when they're shuffling, defensive linemen as well, when they're shuffling, you want to keep your arms in close and tight to your body. You don't want to sit there and be wild to where your arms are sitting here kind of like you're just like flinging your arms around. You don't really want to be seeing that from them. You want to keep it tighter, because that is keeping you prepared for, like, in a game situation, you're shuffling sideways, and if your arms are moving and here comes a blocker that you just happen to miss or something, well, it's harder for you to bring it down to protect yourself. Or if you're keeping it close and tight and you're helping keep your chest protected. And while I knew about, not wanting your arms being all wild out there, I kind of knew the reason, but hearing, I think it was Devin White who really hit it point of that. It's always, as a defensive player, you always want to protect your chest, because if they get hold of your chest, you're essentially going to be washed out, especially if you're in the front seven. So it's a great, it's a great help and everything to just add that extra protection for it in case like your eyes just happen to miss something.
That's really interesting. And I guess it makes a whole lot of sense, because like you said, if your arms are flopping around and whatnot, if you keep them nice and tight, you're ready to fight back. You have that puncher stance. So that's very interesting.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. And another thing too is, like, for edge rushers and defensive linemen, when they're shuffling, you want to see them holding tight, because then you're ready for a punch. Mm-hmm. Like if you're sitting there, you're shuffling sideways, say it's a outside zone play, and you're you're shuffling, you're moving laterally, and then you catch the pulling guard where you have your arms cocked back and ready, and you can get up and underneath the pad level and drive through the play and potentially make a play on the ball carrier.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I never thought of actually doing that because, like you said in your in the opening statement there, I typically, when I'm watching those drills, I'm watching their hip fluidity, like how they move their feet, how they are able to turn their hips and run, if they're able to go from a sprint to a shuffle, back to a sprint, back to a shuffle, change of direction ability. That's where I'm watching a lot of the time. So to understand that keeping your arms nice and tight, that's a new trick for me to kind of understand how these drills are operating because, like I said, they're in a vacuum. You have, here's a bunch of defensive ends, here's a bunch of linebackers, here's a bunch of defensive tackles and safety. We're all in a position group and we're all doing the exact same thing. So you don't have the pads and everything like that. You literally are focusing on just the movement ability of this particular player.
And one thing too, when it comes to these drills and why these position drills matter, yeah, you want to see it translate on tape, but you want to see the technique here. And this is the only time during the draft process where you can go from watching Joey Porter talking about defensive backs to Christian Gonzalez to Emmanuel Forbes to Keely Ringo, and you're seeing them back to back to back to back, where you can actually judge the difference in techniques. And that could be, for a lot of teams, what separates them. Well, this guy has a better tape grade, this guy's a better athlete, but the guy with the better tape grade, his technique isn't super clean in the thing, but the athlete is showing improved technique. That could be the difference maker when it goes to making that decision. And it's like that for all positions. So just having that aspect of, you can go through and watch these guys one after the other, and teams get replays of this. They get the tape of it. They can go back and watch it. It's all super beneficial of, again, that back-to-back aspect of it.
Yeah, that's really nice to know. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat here. I want to bounce off another question before we get into the breakdowns of everything. We got Mike S in the house, obviously Michael Ronquillo in here as well. Yoda, that's a new name for me. Obviously not a new name for everybody that's a Star Wars fan, but a new name for this podcast anyway. So welcome in, Yoda, and thank you for joining us. Clayton Huron is in the house. We've got Greg Smith. Mile High, we've got String Guy, Phil McLaughlin jumping in here, throwing some stars around. What's up, Phil? Thanks for joining us as always, man. Good evening, Lance, Eric, and Deacon Scott. Guys, how high do you think Nolan Smith will go? Hashtag Go Broncos, hashtag MHH for life. So if you guys don't know, Nolan Smith is an edge defender from the University of Georgia who absolutely blew the doors off of Lucas Oil Stadium with his testing. I believe a 4.39 41.5-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump. Like, this dude tested just ridiculously. Eric, I know that there's some concerns. I've got an article coming on him as well, but what do you think his testing ability and what you've seen on tape, what does this do for his stock?
Well, the best thing too is, like, everybody gets hyped about these big numbers that they put in, but you want to see it on tape as well. And you don't want testing numbers that are so out of line with what you're seeing on tape in a negative way. And if they're blowing off what you're getting off of tape out of the water, you want to figure out what's going on there. Nolan Smith ran a little bit faster than expected, but he was expected to be in that mid 4.4 range, 4.43, 4.45. He was expected to be fast. He came in light. He's dealing with a pectoral injury, and word is everything came back clean on that at the combine medicals, which is huge for his draft stock as well. I'd say that's even bigger for him than anything on the field. But also, again, big jump. He had a historic 10-yard split, a good broad jump. Like, he tested out well. He extremely well. But everybody knew that he was going to test out extremely well. Again, it comes back to the medicals. I think he cemented himself as a top 50 pick, unless the word going around with the clean medicals is incorrect or false, or just somebody else trying to help make somebody else fall, or whatever the case may be. I think he'll be a top 50 pick because the medicals were the bigger thing for the combine for him than the actual athletic testing.
Yeah, and another thing for him, specifically in terms of maybe potentially falling, is this edge class is just ridiculous. Like, there's so much talent, and these defensive linemen in general yesterday just were incredible in their testing. So maybe you see some guys that have lesser concerns with their size and lesser concerns with injuries, get vaulted up above that because everybody did test so well. So maybe that might be a reason why Nolan Smith falls.
Definitely. I mean, the depth of this class is is absolutely insane at the edge position. I mean, a few months ago, I was talking about how, after you get past the top three guys, Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, and Lucas Van Ness, there's a group of about 6 edge rushers that are right on that, late first, early second, like mark there. Well, listening to Daniel Jeremiah yesterday when they're running the 40, Daniel Jeremiah is talking about how he had like 8 edge rushers in his top 50, and he may have to bump up that number to like 12 or 13 with how some of these guys are showing, because there's even after that top 50, there's still a good group of edges that did well and could have pushed themselves up into that mark. So, I mean, it's not going to be, it's unlikely we're going to see a situation where 10 plus edge rushers go in the top 50. So somebody's going to fall.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Before we get into these edge defenders that really kind of shined, obviously we got Nolan Smith in there. There's another guy I want to get your opinion on. I want to go back to the numbers testing part of this of what the combine is really fast. And everybody, obviously, you're getting the 10-yard splits numbers, you're getting the 40-yard dash, the 3 cones and stuff like that. What specifically are these drills designed to do? Like, why are we doing a 40-yard dash for guys that weigh 350 pounds that aren't typically going to be running 40s? Why are we using these, the vertical jump? Why are we using the broad jump? What do these actually tell you about these players?
So the 40 matters, but not for every position. For a lot of positions, it's more so about the 10-yard split. Offensive lineman, 10-yard split, and actually overall 40 has a good correlation to success for offensive tackles in the NFL. Defensive linemen, edges, it's about that 10-yard split, and then the shuttle drills, the 3 cone and the 20-yard shuttle. Those are important because they're going to be changing direction a lot, so it's super important for them linebackers as well. The broad jump and the vertical jump, that's more about lower body explosion. How much explosion can you generate just from your lower half to go and get up? That's really a big element for almost every position, is seeing that lower body explosion.
Right.
Defensive backs, obviously the vertical, like just seeing how high you can go up there and get it. Like, obviously that's a very simple one that matters, seeing the explosion to go out there and get it. Offensive lineman, that explosion for driving off the ball. Same with defensive linemen, running backs, getting off quickly, like you hit a go and exploding off a block or whatever the case may be. Receivers, same thing. So they all have different elements, and it's not the straight number, like it's the number that you have it, but it's just what it shows, the explosion element of it, the ability to change direction quickly, the burst, like the 40-yard dash, having the 10 and 20-yard split, it shows that burst and everything. Are you more of a long speed guy? Do you have a slow 10-yard split? And then you have it, but you still have a fast 40. There was a guy yesterday who, I can't remember who it was, but he had a really slow, like one of the slowest 10-yard splits for the position group, but his 40 was like one of the top 5. Like, he just doesn't explode off the ball or off the snap, so to speak, but he picks up speed as he goes.
Yeah, there was a couple of linebackers that I noticed that specifically. I think Lonnie Phelps was one that I kind of noticed. He had a slower 10-yard split, but he still had a respectable 40 time. I'd have to go back and double check my notes on everything like that. But it's very interesting to see how all this kind of ties together. And I'm glad you kind of broke that down for us. We got Gary Palmer jumping in here with a $5 super chat saying, "Hey, Lance, Eric, and Scott, and Broncos country. Go Broncos, MHH for life. Hashtag Buckham." Thank you, Gary, for that. We appreciate you, man. Now that we've kind of broken down what we're doing here in terms of the athletic testing, in terms of the on-field maneuverability stuff, let's really break down this class so far. Obviously, we were talking about defensive end. We're going to go in defensive depth chart order here for you guys and kind of talk about some of the players that really shine for us. We'll start at the defensive end, the edge position, if you will, Eric. Who are the top 5 guys for you that really kind of shined, and why? Obviously, Nolan Smith is one we're going to get into again, but there's another one here. I'm baiting you for this one.
So, going away from guys who didn't really partake in the drills and just did the testing, because for me, like, the athletic testing is great and everything, and you combine that to the film. I really like focusing on the drills a little bit. I want to see if they improve their technique from what they see on film, if they're able to show it in shorts and shells. If you can show it in shorts and shells, then it should be able to translate over onto the field as well if you're improving on it. One of the guys that I really liked yesterday who had on that edge group, Derek Hall, and one reason why I thought he had such a great day was he was in there with the linebackers. He was one of those edges. There was like 6 or 7 edges of all with all the linebackers that had to go through the linebacker drills. They had to go through the coverage drills, the drills that they're not going to be doing a lot. And while he didn't kill it with the coverage drills, he showed that he can, occasionally drop back into coverage and do well. He's very much a pass rusher. He did a great job with the pass rushing drills. He did a great job with the lateral movement movement drills. Like, he just had a really good day overall. Nolan Smith obviously was good athlete, but again, he didn't participate in the drills.
Mm-hmm.
The Thule, the edge out of USC, I thought it was great to see him slim down. There's a question if he would be a defensive lineman or an edge. He slimmed down. He's trying to show that he can live off the edge, and he had a really good workout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a bunch of guys. Like, it's hard to pick just 5 guys at the edge because it was such a good group. When I was doing the winners and losers for it last night, like, some of them with some of the drills, it's like I got a nitpick here to find a loser for the drill.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only picking one loser. Like, there was one winner, one loser. So I got a nitpick to find him because a lot of these edges just looked good. There was a couple of them that just stood out in a negative way far more than the rest of them.
Yeah. I want to go to one of the guys that really blew up the combine that didn't get really any run in terms of just the incredible athletic testing that he did, and then also being relatively smooth in the drills. And that's this name is so hard to pronounce, so I'm probably going to butcher it and see if I can. Yeah, Tomi. Yep. Adetomiwa Adebawore is his name. He's an edge from Northwestern, more of a 5 technique defensive end. So, guys, think about like a Draymond Jones type of player here. 6'3", 280. It really is. 6'3", 282 pounds, 33.5-inch arms or something like that. But this dude was incredible. He's a freak of nature. 4.49 seconds on a 40-yard dash, and he jumped out of the building. This dude was incredible, and I watched him in the movement drills, and I was really impressed with his ability. They had him kind of drop back a little bit. It wasn't a whole lot of drop back and coverage stuff, but he was powerful. He was explosive. His hands were really nice. This dude is amazing, and I really wish that we could get some more coverage of what he was able to do because we're talking historic numbers here, guys.
Yeah, he was a little bit shorter than Draymond Jones, because he came in just under 6'2", and and as Scott says in there, his height isn't such a big concern because it's a game of leverage there with what he's going to be doing. And his tape, when you go to his tape, one way that he consistently wins is with leverage. And the bigger aspect of that is when you look at somebody who's shorter, you want to have long arms. If you're going to be short, you need to have those long arms to help keep offensive linemen off your body. He was just under the 34-inch mark, which is great for a guy of that style of play. He got he was in the shadow with other athletic testing. Nolan Smith, I mean, he just happened to be in that same group with him when he should have been with the defensive lineman like Kalijah Cansey was, who a little bit similar of a mold. Kalijah Cansey not as a little bit shorter and a lot less longer arms, which is the big concern with Cansey. But yeah, Tomi had a huge day. He did a really good job in the drills. When the coverage drills he did it better than some of the off-ball linebackers that were doing it. Like he looked really smooth with his movement, really refined. There were a couple of times where, with his change of direction that, you could see it, that he was a little heavy and just needed to improve on and get better at. But I mean, he had a really good day.
Yeah, like I said, 4.49 second, 40-yard dash, a 10-yard split. The closer you get that number to 1.6, the better. He was 1.61. Vertical jump 37.5, broad jump 10.5 feet, or 10 feet 5 inches, 27 bench press reps. This dude absolutely took Lucas Oil Stadium, crumpled it up in a can, and then threw it away. Like, it was incredible what he was able to do. Another edge guy that I really kind of liked a lot that didn't get as much praise because everyone's talking about Nolan Smith is Byron Young, the kid out of Tennessee. 4.51 second 40-yard dash. I believe I'm trying to pull the numbers here right now on him. He let's see, 4.43. kind of a bigger guy, 243 pounds, I think is what he weighed in at. I'm trying to do this on the fly, guys, so apologize for that. But what was his movement? 250? Okay, so 250 at 4.43 at 250 is scooting. Like this dude's an explosive athlete as well, and it showed on tape as well. Eric, talk about his movement skills and what do you think that his stock's going to look like moving forward here?
Well, I mean, the explosion was easy to see in all the drills. He was. Mm-hmm. There were some hiccups with the change of direction aspect of it, but nothing that can't be overcome with improving the footwork a little bit. One of the drills is it's a pretty standard drill. It's you have 2 bags, you got to bend the corner at the second bag, slap rip off the first one, slap bend on the second one. And he had one of the better drills of that. He didn't get as much power in his initial slap. And off the snap, one issue is that you want to keep it same hand, same foot, because it helps you generate more torque, which generates more power. And he had an issue both times they ran the drill. He had an issue on that first one, but the second one there was much more. He kept his upper body and lower body in sync, and then his bend, well, not absolutely crazy. It was really good, and he was able to get up and under because you're trying to bend that corner to get shortest patch of the quarterback. You're getting under the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle, and you're making the sack. And he did a good job with that.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty impressive. One guy that really stood out to me, and I know that you would talk to me about it in our private chat last night, was a guy from Notre Dame, Isaiah Foskey. There was a lot of talk about him potentially being a first-round pick, a guy I really like a lot, more speed to Bauer kind of a player than like bendy, twitchy kind of an edge rusher. But you were concerned about something with him. What was
it? Yeah, he's extremely stiff. He's not fluid. And in one of the drills, it's another pass rushing drill. I can't remember what they call it. I think they call it it's essentially a pass rush gauntlet. You have 4 bags in a row, and you got to do a different move at each bag, and then you're coming down and you're sacking the quarterback after you're bending around, coming around. The second move you do is a spin move, and every step of the way, like he's flinging his leg out there on the spin move, which you don't want to see. You want to keep it tight with almost everything in football. You want to keep it tight to the body. And it really flexes that stiffness to be able to generate that spin while keeping your feet clean. Another pass rushing move, or the other pass rushing drill, the 2-bag one. I mean, getting that bend on it, it was rough because he was like almost standing upright and just turning a corner like I would. Like I'm walking around a corner. That's kind of how it seemed like watching him. And then in the change of direction, the movement drills, he was very upright, very stiff in the lower body. He's going to be one of those guys that there's potential with him to be a pass rusher in the NFL, but he's very much one that you got to go through the offensive tackle. Otherwise, that's it. If the offensive tackle is able to generate momentum against him and drive him out, he's going to struggle.
Yeah. With him, you see it on tape too. He's very linear. He's very much, like I said, speed to power, get his hands on there. He's long. He's got good long arms and good strength in his lower half. But when you don't have the twitch and bend ability, it's kind of hard to succeed at the NFL level. Let's slide this inside just a little bit here because this, like I said, go ahead. Go ahead.
Scott mentioned a guy who in the private chat that.
Oh, really yeah.
Mentioned because he had a great day. Yaya Diaby out of Louisville. He had a great time at the Senior Bowl. He's one of those guys that he's really helped himself through this process. I didn't get a chance to watch him before the Senior Bowl, but I did afterwards. I like his tape. He's one of those guys that's a borderline late day 2, early day 3 guy for me. But his drills were clean. He was smooth with his change of direction. And he showed off enough versatility with the ways he can get after the quarterback through the drills that he's not going to be limited to a certain role of it. And one thing too, when you're talking about the pass rush drills, they don't really have great drills for run defense, for taking on blocks and shedding it. They did away with that. But you can translate some of what they're doing in the pass rush drills into the run defense aspect of it. And those aspects looked really good and clean for Yaya Diaby as well.
Yeah, that was one that I actually mentioned to you guys as well. It's like, man, he just looks so nice today. He tested really well. He looked really smooth in his movement drills and everything like that. Looked powerful with his hands. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yaya Diaby definitely deserves the shout out and a lot more love. I think that's probably the biggest thing that we've taken away from this is like Nolan Smith literally stole the day, and that's all everybody wanted to talk about was a top 50 player out of Georgia. But this edge class is just incredible. They tested very, very well, and so did a lot of these interior defensive linemen. I mean, the first one that we've got to talk about, my dude Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh. I know you kind of mentioned him just a little bit ago, but this dude is somebody that I've had my eyes on ever since I did a film breakdown of Damari Mathis back in July. Like, I called this guy is going to be a dude to watch. The problem is he's 6'1", 280 pounds, and his arms are only 30.5 inches long. Like, he did not meet any of the size requirements you want from an interior defensive lineman. But then you watch him out there in the athletic testing, and this dude ran a 4.67 second 40-yard dash, which was the fastest time by a player until Adebaware ran after him. But the fastest time by a player, 280 pounds at the combine since 2003. Like, this dude was scooting at the combine. I didn't get a chance to watch him in much of the drills, but dude, that's pretty quick for a guy that size.
So the whole thing with the fastest at the combine for it, it's a little misleading because he's not anymore. The biggest thing was that it was the fastest since 2003 for a player over 280 pounds.
Right. Yep. And
they're making it specific to defensive tackle because, well, there was a guy who outran him last year, and that's Northwestern. Tommy Adebaware, or however you say his last name. Yeah, haven't learned that yet. He outran him. He ran faster, and he's over 280 pounds. He just happened to be with the defensive end group. So it's a little cheating from the NFL there to still give that title to Cansey. Doesn't take away how impressive it is. It's just the fact that you have a guy who is a little bit heavier who ran a pretty significantly faster 40-yard dash than he did.
And does everything that Kalijah Cansey can do, but almost better. Like, because you've actually got size, you've got some length that you can work with. Can play the 5 technique, which is his primary position. Cansey's more of an interior guy, and I know that you and I go back and forth on this. A 5 technique and a 3-4 defense is obviously an interior defender. You've got the edge defender on the outside. I'm talking more to like inside of the tackle. So he's a true interior defensive lineman for what they used at Pittsburgh. But at the NFL level, you can't be 280 pounds and play defensive tackle. If you do, then you need to be able to eat up a lot of space. You need to be able to put your ass in the ground and be an anchor, or you need to have elite explosive ability with your athletic ability. And Cansey at least has one of those aspects, but man, the length and the size concerns are very real with him.
And the thing is Aaron Donald is the clean and obvious comparison that everybody makes with Cansey. The issue is that Aaron Donald, if I remember right, he still had decent length in his arms. I can pull up his combine information real quick and double check on that. And with Kalijah Cansey, if you're looking at interior defensive linemen, with his length, 30.5 inches, right, for his arm length, here's a list of defensive tackles with shorter arms: Carlo Kemp and Colby Whitlock. And it doesn't get much better if you put him out as a edge defender either. So he's got historically short arms.
Yeah, we're talking 0th percentile.
Came in over 32.5 inches. So that little bit extra length, he came in a little bit heavier than he did. Came in, I think, just like an inch taller. But all this stuff, it adds to it, and with how explosive he is. That doesn't mean that Kalijah Cansey can't work in the NFL. Or can't be successful in the NFL. Obviously, Aaron Donald, a lot of people had questions about him, and look at what he's done. The issue is that you are betting on him being a significant outlier from the history of what we've seen with success at the position, or positions in this case, that it's a tough bet to overcome. And I think that it is enough of a tough bet in the case of Cansey to where he doesn't hear his name called in the first round. But I'm sure some team will be willing to take a shot on him somewhere around pick 50.
If he fell to 67, I would take him in Denver, especially with what Vance Joseph wants to do with his interior defensive linemen. Penetrate, like shoot and blow open gaps as much as you can. Let the linebackers fill in the run fits. And you're switching to more of a primary 4-down, 4-3 base kind of a look, especially when they go in. So actually, let me rephrase that. It's a 3-4 base that goes to 4-3. They slide everybody over. They play the over front. They bring in the extra nickel defender to play in as that extra off-ball linebacker. But with Kancey and his skill set, he does exactly what Vance Joseph wants you to do in that particular position. So if he fell to 68 and 69, he would be a guy that I would really have my eyes on for the Broncos here. Continuing here with the defensive line drills, Brian Brzee, a guy out of Clemson, tested really well from what I have seen. But there's one guy that's like 320 pounds that plays the nose tackle position from South Carolina, Zach Pickens. This dude was incredible, Eric.
Yeah, he was. You just mislabeled him. He's not a nose tackle.
Okay,
he's a versatile defensive lineman. I think he came in just over 300 pounds, like 303, 304.
Okay.
He is well regarded for his run defense. There were concerns about his pass rush. 291 is what he came in at the combine. So I was
holy cow! I thought he was a bigger guy than that.
He moved extremely well through the drills, and I think what stood out for me, he was one of the guys that I had as one of the overall winners on the day. He showed so much development and growth as a pass rusher during the drills, which obviously you take with a grain of salt sometimes when it doesn't match up with tape. And he just showed the potential there to be more of a contributor there than he did in college, where again, he was a primary run defender where he's eating up space, and he's shown on tape too that he can 1 gap, 2 gap, 1.5 gap. Extremely versatile, can play multiple spots on the defensive line. He had probably the best day for me among all the interior defensive linemen.
The reason why I got that all messed up and mislabeled it is because I was actually thinking Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, another guy that I know that you're really high on. He tested really well as well. That was the direction I was actually going in there, and I do apologize for that, everybody. That's just me not focusing well enough. So apologies there. Keanu Benton, that was another name that I was kind of very intrigued by with what he was able to do. Tested very highly, came in 6'4", 309 pounds with just short of 34-inch arms, 33 7/8, which is a prototypical size that you like to see from a more of a nose tackle guy. 5.08 40-yard dash, 1.79 10-yard split. Jumped decently for a guy that size, 29.5 in the vertical, 9.3 in the broad jump, and his other athletic testing numbers were actually very, very impressive as well. Would like to see a little more strength with him. But what did you think of his movement skills? Did he do any of the drills out there on the field?
He did, and I think that he is a guy who he's been labeled as a nose tackle throughout this process, and I think that while that is what he will mostly do, he, with his movement skills here, with what he did at the combine, or sorry, the Senior Bowl, he showed that he can be more than just a nose tackle in the NFL. Okay. He can slide out to be a 3 tech, he can slide out to be a 4-eye tech, but that's probably about it. So you're working somewhere from 0 to, that 4-eye. He's better as a 1.5 instead of a true 2 gapper, which might hurt his ability to be a pure nose tackle. But yeah, there's a lot to work with him. I think he's a guy who's helped himself a lot. The athletic testing wasn't great, but not terrible by any means. And it's just, he's smart. He's energetic, and one thing with him too that I always look forward is just a very minor thing is where are they standing when they're getting direction on how to do the drills. He was always right there with the coaches, like up close, not behind a little bit. They try to get them all gathered, but there's always guys that kind of hang back a little bit. But he was always right there. He was talking to coaches in between drills, asking them different things, trying to improve and continue to work. Which, trust me, that is something that every team sees and every team notes.
Yeah. Question coming in here from Mike. Let's run to the chat really fast here. Actually, I got back-to-back questions here. First one from Mike S. jumping in here saying, how are the Alabama guys doing so far, Eric? Do you have a tracker on that right now or not? I'm not sure. I haven't got a chance to see because I know they've got an interior defensive lineman, Byron Young. I'm not sure if he tested or not. So I don't really know. I know Toto looked really good in the linebacker drills.
Yeah, so a lot of Alabama guys over the last couple days. DJ Dale he was a loser for me, but it wasn't like he was bad. He proved exactly what everybody believes him to be from college tape. He didn't show anything more. He didn't show anything less. Byron Young, the other defensive tackle there, he had a pretty solid showing. Some good movement in the position drills. Showed a little bit more as a pass rusher. Will Anderson was Will Anderson. Henry To'o, he was he was solid. Like it was easy to see how smooth he was in coverage and how fluid he was with his movement. He did it really well there. Brian Branch, a lot of people are going to hit him for the day that he had with athletic testing, which was just not great. I don't think it was terrible. It was more in line with what I did or with what I was expecting. He did a really good job in the drills. DeMarco Helms really struggled quite a bit. And then the other safety that they Jordan Battle had a pretty solid day as well. So overall, it's been a good combine for the Alabama guys on the defensive side of the ball.
What about Eli Ricks? Did Eli Ricks test? There was some. No, he did not. Okay, that was the one that I could think of off the top of my head. I am really drawing a blank tonight, guys. Ryan Powell jumping in here. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I saw somebody ask about Devin Witherspoon not testing and asking if that hurts his draft stock. No, I think he's still in that competition for the second or third cornerback. He was dealing with the hamstring injury, so he wasn't able to participate. And it's one of those things of that he's not necessarily saying no. He's being told no from how it's going around by his agents, by his training staff, by the people he's working with, as well as teams. Like they don't want the teams don't even want players to go out there when they're dealing with a hamstring injury and run poorly. So I don't think it hurt his stock. And the only one who really, who did the testing that was risky for him was Christian Gonzalez, who I think cemented himself as a top 10 pick. And for me was cornerback 1 anyways.
Right. Yeah, Christian Gonzalez looks so nice out there. He weighed in nice, moves really well, tested really well. Like he did pretty much everything you want to see from a cornerback to cement himself as cornerback 1. I have him as cornerback 2 because of Witherspoon. I think I like Witherspoon's tape just a little bit more, but Christian Gonzalez is going to be a hell of a player at the next level. Ryan Powell jumping in here, and this is a great way to segue into our next topic here, the linebackers. Asking, what do you think of the guy from Tulane, Dorian Williams? Is who I believe you're talking about here, Ryan. This dude tested really well as well. He ran really, really fast in his 40 time. Moved pretty well out there in coverage drills as well. This is a coverage linebacker from Tulane. How did he do?
His 40 drill was fine. His 40-yard dash, 4.49. That's a great time for him. His split of 1.54 seconds is great, and I don't realize, and it's dang near historic good. You just don't see it often, and I think people would be talking about his 40 time and his 10-yard split if it wasn't for the Auburn linebacker that was there who ran an absolutely blazing time and happened to just shed out Dorian Williams on the 10-yard split by 0.02 seconds. So whatever that is, that my brain can't figure out that aspect of it now. But Dorian Williams, it was funny watching him run the 40 because of his hair. It's sitting there flinging all over the place. And it was what was funny about it is you typically see them pull the dreads back a little bit and so they can sit there because it does affect a little bit with the drag. But dude ran fast, so it just still was entertaining to watch, and he did a good job in the drills. So I like him. He came in a little bit lighter than I wanted him to. He came in under 230, and 230 is the mark that you want to hit as a linebacker. Weight does correspond and correlate with success in the NFL, and 230 is the mark now. And it's gone down, so it can still continue to go down as things change in the NFL. Because at one point it's hard to see success if you were under 230 or 245. And then it dropped down to 240. Then it's now dropped. It was 235 a few years ago, and it continues to drop as the game is getting a little bit lighter and faster. He just missed it by 2 pounds, something that you can easily add on. And it could be a case that he dropped a little bit extra weight to help him run a little bit faster. Because I think he was heavier at the Senior Bowl.
I think you're right on that. I have to go back and double check all the notes and whatnot. The other linebacker you were talking about that ran a little bit faster than than Dorian Williams is Owen Papo, linebacker out of Auburn. He's also a fullback. He made Bruce Feldman's freak list because this dude is a ridiculously freaky athlete. 4.39 second 40-yard dash, 1.52 in the 10-yard split, 35.5-inch vertical. But again, like you were just talking about, came in under 230 pounds, 6 foot even, 225 pounds, 31.75-inch arm length. So he's got some length issues there as well. Talk about him on the field here, though. I thought he was a little bit clunky in his hip fluidity and his movement ability. It's an interesting player, probably a day 3 guy that's going to be more of a special teamer just because of the athleticism. But what do you think about the upside of a player of this caliber here?
Talking about
Papo, Owen Papo.
Yeah, Papo. I like him a little bit more. There were his footwork wasn't the best when it came to changing direction, but that is something that's correctable. There's a little bit of stiffness in the hips as well in that aspect of it, but his burst is insane. So if you have clunky footwork, if you have some stiff hips when you come to changing direction, if you have the burst to make up for it, like you can still be extremely successful. And one thing too, for an inside linebacker, which is what he's going to be at the NFL level, is it's instincts and awareness. That is the biggest thing. You want the football IQ, you want the intangibles. That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest correlation to success in the NFL. It's not just athleticism. Well, you want to be athletic. It's easier to bet and see success from guys who check those intangible marks, and he does. He's got a combination of good athleticism, not great, and the intangibles. So wouldn't be surprising if he finds success in the NFL. Maybe not be like one of the top guys at the position, but probably be, if he develops, of course, he could potentially be in that, 3rd or 4th tier there of really solid guys that you're comfortable starting, that you're not really looking for an upgrade.
Yeah. Another linebacker here that tested really well is a guy that I like out of Washington State. Deion Henley ran a 4.54 second 40-yard dash. Showed a lot of the explosiveness you see on tape, the fluidity that he has. Very, very nice player coming out of Washington State. Also very versatile player. There's some interesting stuff here. Let's grab this from Phil, and I'll jump back into that. But based on George Paton's past, do you think that he will trade back, Eric? What do you think?
When you have those 2 third-round picks that are back-to-back, it's very easy to sit there and look at, see what you can get to trade down a little bit. Part of the reason why they got a extra 3rd-round pick this year was trading back in the 3rd round. So it's definitely something that is possible, especially with how few picks they have. I think that Peyton would be a little bit more focused on getting extra capital in this year's draft instead of, we'll take a little bit less this year for an extra 3rd next year like they did with the Colts. So it's definitely possible. And I actually, even if they trade a player or not for extra draft picks, I think that they'll trade back at least once in the 3rd round or 4th round. I think it'll be one of those earlier picks that they do have.
Yeah, I think one of those thirds is about to get split into, if you can get a 4th and a 5th out of it, this year would be a really good move for George Paton to pull off if he can figure out a way to do that.
I think he'll be looking at a later 3rd and a 4th or a 5th.
Yep.
Like he won't want to completely give it up out of the 3rd round, but moving back a little bit. And it's something that he could do too, because we saw him in his first year trade back multiple times in the 3rd round. And picking up just extra picks, and he didn't jump down really far. It's just something that he's done multiple times in the 3rd round. So that's a good range to watch it, and just keep a pick in the 3rd round. Just add a little bit extra day 3 picks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. There's something with Pat Mahomes apparently. I don't know. I was gonna kind of Twitter search that behind the scenes here and find out what's going on. Clayton, come back with us if you actually got a good report. Maybe drop a link in. Scott's saying no, so never mind. Going back to Deion Henley here, I was listening to some podcasts, I believe it's the NFL Stock Exchange podcast with Trevor Sikkema and Connor Rogers the other day, and they were talking about his path to where he's at right now. Transferred to Washington State from Nevada, but when he started at Nevada, he started as a wide receiver. he was a slot wide receiver specifically with, I believe it was Jordan Love was his quarterback there. Then he switched over to the defensive side of the football and played safety. And then when he transferred to Washington State, he started playing the linebacker position. Now, Erick, now that's a long backstory there, but I found it very interesting. A player of that caliber, a guy that's very versatile and stuff like that, obviously is going to be raw to this position. How did he look out there on the field?
Sorry, who was that? I clicked over to Twitter and I saw that they started putting out the 3-cone times for the defensive backs. Julius Brent ran a 20-yard total in 4:05, which is absolutely insane. So what player were you asking me about?
Deion Henley, Washington State linebacker, and just the versatility that he has, going from wide receiver to safety, then to linebacker over the course of his college career.
Yeah, he's a guy who he still has room on his frame to add a little bit more weight to him, and that's something that he needs to do. Came in just under, and it's something that he's been trying to add a little bit more weight to him. I think he came in at 226 or 227 pounds, one of the two.
I'm pulling him up.
And his playing coverage is so smooth. His flipping his hips was fluid. It was quick. It all came naturally to him watching him do it, which you would expect from a guy who was a receiver, then a safety, making those changes. You would expect to see the fluidity with his movement and everything. Of all the linebackers, he was easily the best one when it came to the coverage drills. And he's probably going to be the most coveted pure coverage linebacker in this class. Because Trenton Simpson is a top linebacker, but Trenton Simpson, he's a good cover guy. He's a good run defender. I think he's more complete, whereas Henley just outclasses him a little bit when it comes to coverage.
Yeah, especially in the movement ability. Like Simpson does so well moving vertically, but like his change of direction ability to me is not necessarily up to par, especially with a guy like Henley. Henley came into the combine 6'1", 225, 33-inch arms, which is really good for a linebacker. Again, 4.54 40-yard dash, 1.55 10-yard split, 35-inch vertical, 10-foot 5-inch broad jump. Just, again, a really good showing from a raw player that has a lot of like incredible amount of upside. Is there anybody else here in the comments really fast that we want to grab? Well, guys, get your questions in. If you have any players, or Erick, go ahead while I dig through this. Give me another couple of players at the linebacker position really fast that really stood out to you yesterday.
What I was going to mention is you mentioned the arm length for Henley, and that is something that it doesn't correlate to success so much, but I'm curious to see in 2-3 years if that changes at all. Because the NFL, this is a big issue that NFL teams had with Nakobe Dean last year. He was short, didn't have great length. Well, they're looking for longer and they're looking for taller linebackers because they can help shrink that window on those over routes where you're trying to drop it over the safeties or under the safeties over the linebackers. If you have that extra length, then you're shrinking those windows. And Henley with 33-inch arms, even though he came in at 6'1", he's got enough length for it. And talking about another linebacker real quick, Jack Campbell, his arms were a little bit shorter, but he makes up for it because he's got that extra height. He came in at 6'5", and I think his arms were just between 31 and 32 inches, if I remember correctly. So you want to see this extra height. So again, doesn't correlate to success at the moment. It is more so overall weight that correlates to success. But I'm curious to see if that starts to change over the next few years.
Yeah, just having that extra length to be able to get into passing windows, especially with the way that the NFL has changed into a more passing league, especially over the middle of the field with tight ends, really becoming the forefront of the passing attack between the hashes and in the 10 to 15, like the intermediate area of the field. Having a linebacker that has a little bit of athleticism, good movement skills, and some length to them, I think you're going to see that kind of change a little bit more. And Erick, that's a really good point there. Let's move back a level of the defense. Obviously, you've got cornerbacks and safeties. You've got about 12 minutes here. So let's run some cornerbacks first. Obviously, we were talking about Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon as well. But there's a guy that, and you mentioned him, and as I was talking about Henley here, Julius Brents from Kansas State, man. This dude is about to lock himself as a top 50 pick with the way that he is testing. Stupid long. Came in with 83-inch wingspan, 34.5-inch, crazy. And then he started testing, and this dude blew it away, man. Talk about Julius Brents really fast for me.
Yeah. So the big question was just how athletic he would be coming into the combine, and it's very clear he is extremely athletic. We knew he was going to be long. We knew he was going to be tall. We knew he was going to be well built, carry good weight on his frame, and he has just been absolutely killing it every step of the way. Had a great Senior Bowl, great week of practices at the Senior Bowl, and then he comes to the combine and tested well and absolutely killed it in the drills. I think there was one drill I hit him negatively on just because it was a change of direction, and it's a very difficult drill for defensive backs to do because you're opening up your hips to the inside and you have to completely flip and get out and drive on basically a hook or a curl route. And he kind of got his footwork kind of got out of control and out from underneath him a little bit, and he slipped. If I'm thinking of the right one. And it was just that little bit there just kind of lost a little bit. They started doing the gauntlet for cornerbacks. He absolutely killed the gauntlet. Like every drill, basically, he was just standing out, looking like one of the best guys to do it, looking natural, looking clean, looking smooth. And one thing is that with some of these drills, so they have their big one where you're driving back in the back pedal, you flip your hips to one side, flip it to the other side, and you do that a couple times, and you got to flip completely and catch the ball. One thing that a lot of players or people don't know about it is that teams time it. They want to see you go through it quickly. And there's a lot of guys that they'll start slowing down when it comes time for them to flip their hips or flip completely to go and attack the ball. And they'll slow down for the catch point. Brent's tempo in all these drills, and that drill especially, were top notch. He probably put up a good time. And just great to see the technical aspect to his play style being shown there during the drills.
Yeah. Phil McLaughlin jumping in here, switching to the opposite side of the football here and talking some quarterback. I like this. You guys think that Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee, could be quarterback 2 in this class? No.
I think he means for Denver.
Even for Denver? Yeah, actually, I would welcome this move. I don't know, it would really depend on how free agency goes for me in this particular aspect. Obviously, I'm looking for an interior defensive lineman, looking for potentially a cornerback, offensive lineman help as well. If you can kind of solidify some of those needs coming into the draft, I would be all about taking Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round. If you could, even if you traded down just a little bit, secure your guy. Very good tools, good arm strength, moves really well. Obviously, coming off of a torn ACL, and the other big question is the scheme that he played at in Tennessee under Josh Heupel is definitely not one that is understood by NFL teams at all. Everything that they do is foreign to the NFL there. For the most part, it's a lot of one read, get the ball out quick and stuff like that.
It's more so that it doesn't have the best translation to the NFL.
Right. Yes.
NFL teams get it. NFL teams understand everything college teams do. They just don't run it in the NFL for different reasons.
I guess so. That's a better way to say that. Yes, you're right. But Eric, what do you think on Hooker here? Is this a potential option for the Broncos on day 2, or do you think he's going to go higher than that?
With what's going around him, teams aren't super concerned about the ACL injury. Progress on that is going well. Teams aren't concerned about his age. He's a 25-year-old quarterback. They're not concerned about the offense he ran. Every team met with every player at the Senior Bowl, and he impressed. He showed that he understood some of the toughest NFL concepts going through with these different teams. Where he goes will be interesting. I won't say he won't for sure, or he will for sure. I doubt he doesn't make it past pick 50.
That's interesting to me because I know what you just said. I just have my own questions about that with the ACL, with the system and everything like that. But when you watch the guy play, the tools are there. He has everything that you want
exactly
from a guy like that. So
it's the same thing with
why not?
Anthony Richardson will. I doubt he won't. I doubt he will make it past the top 15 picks because while there are things you have to work with, while there are concerns, they throw the ball cleanly. Their mechanics, or they throw the ball pretty cleanly, but all the tools, all the traits are there. And as we're seeing in the NFL, That is what they're really looking for. And it's a thing we've said for a while now. You can teach athletes to play football. You can take somebody with all the traits and you can teach them the mechanics, the technique. Doesn't always work out, but we're starting to see it work out more and more. There's a lot of the questions about Anthony Richardson were made about some other quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not going to say them because then people will take it that I'm making comparison there that I'm not. But Anthony Richardson has all the traits. Hendon Hooker has all the traits. The concerns with Hooker are the injury. Well, have the scouting combine. He's going to be getting medical checks. We'll see how everything goes with those. We'll start to hear word leaking about it. But teams are impressed with him. They're impressed with the interviews that they had at the Senior Bowl. They're impressed with the head and the brain and the football IQ of the kid. So, yeah, I mean, I understand there's questions with him, but I just doubt he'll fall past 50.
Yeah, Gary Palmer jumping in here with a $5 super chat. He said that I heard the quarterback coach's quarterback do anything to that. No, it's a funny haha kind of a deal. But I agree with what you're saying there, Eric, and you didn't want to do it. Just to wrap this up quickly, I'm not going to compare the player directly here, but Anthony Richardson, I'm going to compare a situation. This is why I really like the comparison here, is look at what Shane Steichen, who is now the Indianapolis Colts head coach, was able to do not only with Justin Herbert, but then when he was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where I'm going to draw the comparison line. Jalen Hurts was a raw thrower of the football, more athlete than football player coming out of Alabama and Oklahoma. And then Shane Steichen was able to build an offense around him. The Colts have the number 4 overall pick. They don't have to trade up. They can get Anthony Richardson at number 4 and try to follow that similar path. And I think that that's his best path to success at the NFL level, at least early in his career. He should probably still sit a year. However, if you're not going to do that and you want to get him out on the field, let him use his athleticism. Let him get out there and use his legs. Let him understand a little bit more of the NFL concepts of the NFL game, the speed of the game, develop those passing tools. And if he can develop and become even 70% of what Jalen Hurts is right now, he's going to be a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts will ever be. That dude is incredibly talented. With that, let's go back to the defensive side of the football here really fast. I think we've only got a few minutes left. I guess we can go a little bit long, but not very. Let's run through some cornerbacks really fast that really stood out to you. Obviously, Julius Brents is a guy that I was really, really in love with, and unfortunately, he's probably not going to make it to the Broncos picks at 67, 68. Let's go to the day 3 guys that really kind of stood out. I understand Keitrell Clark, more of a slot cornerback out of Louisville, had a really good combine. What can you speak about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a nickel corner in the NFL. Some of the footwork was a little bit sloppy, but again, we're looking at a guy who's probably a day 3 pick. His change of direction was fine. The thing that bothered me the most with him was in multiple drills. The big thing is you want to finish. And when you want to finish, it means that you want to attack the ball. You don't want to sit there, slow down, have the ball come to you. You want to go and you want to get it. Why? Because in the NFL, if you jump a route, you want to finish. You want to go get the ball. You don't want to wait for it to come to you. Same thing with receivers. You want to go get the ball. He didn't. Like consistently, he would slow, almost come to a stop, let the ball come to him, and then burst to finish. Not what you want to see. And then you add in a couple of drops for him. Not a big deal for a cornerback, but it's just the compounding mistakes there with it. He was a guy that I thought could be, like right around that top 125, top 150 mark. He's going to take a slight hit for me, not a significant one, but instead of top 125, top 150, he might drop down to that next range of top 150, top 175.
Yeah. Speaking of another guy that tested absolutely bonkers, ran a 4.26, I believe was the official 40 time for him. DJ Turner coming out of Michigan, 38.5-inch vertical as well. Extremely explosive athlete. Did he do any of the drills today?
Nope.
No, he didn't.
He didn't run a second 40. He stood on his first time, and that was basically it for him.
That's too bad because I really wanted to see where he was at. Probably a day 2 guy. Late day 2, maybe early day 3 guy, but with a 40 time like that, and then the explosiveness testing that he had out there, like he could definitely be one of those risers. Another guy that's rising, probably going to lock himself into a top 50 pick. Deonte Banks, the cornerback out of Maryland, jumped out of the building, ran really well. He was a top 3 cornerback in all of the athletic testing. How did he look on the field today?
He looked great, and I think you're short selling him a little bit. He came into the combine getting top 32, 31 hype.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
hyping up as cornerback 3.
Oh, really?
Well,
Okay. I hadn't heard that yet. I hadn't heard that
that
yet.
is a bit rich for me. I think he's right there on that bubble of being a first round pick, early second round pick. Wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
surprise me at all to see him go in the first round. Like, dude's athletic, the technique was clean. He attacked the ball. He did everything that you want these corners to do during these drills, and you see it translate on tape. You see the athletic traits that he showed. You see those on tape. Everything matched up, so all the boxes are essentially checked. That, as far as we can tell, I mean, obviously, so much goes into with the medicals. I don't have his injury history off the top of my head. I don't know if there's any issues off the field off top of my head. But those are other aspects that go into it. But everything we see on the field, all those boxes, he checked.
Okay. With Vance Joseph coming in, obviously we're going to see a lot more press man. And there's a guy here from Stanford that was primarily a press man coverage cornerback, 6 foot, 191, 32-inch arms, Caillou Blue Kelly. Again, out of Stanford. He tested pretty well from what I'm seeing here. 4.52 in the 40-yard dash, 1.49 10-yard split, a 36-inch vertical jump, and 10 foot 11 on the broad. How did he look out there today?
He didn't do any drills.
Damn it, man! Everybody that I wanted to ask you about, it's like none of them have tested. I know that you were talking about Keely Ringo. There's another player here. Did we talk about him on the show, or was that before we went live? I think
that was before we went live.
Yeah, talk about Keely
real quick
Ringo really fast.
Before we get out of here. I mean, I've said it about him before. He looks like, when watching him, he looks more athlete than football player. He confirmed it. The technique, the footwork, everything was really sloppy through the drills, but you could see his athleticism. Like, his testing was fine. It was pretty solid, good for a lot of it. You could see the athletic traits when going through the drills. Just got to clean up the technique, and he can be a really good corner in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got every tool that you want and is incredibly athletic. Do you want to run through some safeties really fast, or we wouldn't need to get out of here? Okay. Unfortunately, guys, we're not going to be able to run through some safeties. I do want you to give your one nugget on Sidney Brown really fast. The one thing you said in our group chat privately.
So just go ahead and tell everybody this thing he's told me privately. No.
But it's
like I mentioned with what player now that I can't remember earlier, is there's a couple things I look for between drills. Are they talking to coaches? And are they being right there up at the front? And Sidney Brown, every single drill the safeties did, he was the one that was running the demo. So he got that little extra practice reps of actually doing it. And just, it's just one of those things that stands out to me a little bit. Not a huge deal, not going to affect his grade at all. Just one of those things that it's like, okay, I like to see that. So just a personal preference kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Eric. We appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us on Dove Valley Deep Divers tonight. That's going to do it for us tonight. You guys follow us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH, for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also for Scott, who's running the ones and twos behind the scenes tonight, at Scout Kennedy. Also, guys, make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle. That is the mother account where you guys get breaking news and analysis regarding your Denver Broncos. All of our draft content going to be coming up here starting on Monday. We're going to be putting a whole bunch of that stuff out, so make sure you guys are paying attention to that. Michael Ronquillo jumping in here late. Great show tonight, Lance and Eric on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate that. With that, Eric, any last words you want to get out here?
No, I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll see you next week. And if you guys have any questions about the combine that we weren't able to get to, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, or any draft related question. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, guys, you all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Broncos.